IPMNation.com.
Living in a city when you're in it, watch the people walk by. And if you listen real close, you can hear them talk about their lives. And some hate it, some love it, some are felt, some are just tired. These are the people in the neighborhood, they just trying to make it out right. See, she never wanna be a New Yorker.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. John Rich, and you've tuned in to Dr. John's Neighborhood. I'll direct you once again to my website, www.drjohnrich.com, where we're talking mostly about parenting issues, although every once in a while we talk about education and we talk about financial savvy and things like that. I still don't have any information for you about the book. The book has been on the cusp of being released for about 6 months now, and apparently this stuff takes a lot longer than I realized. I was assuming my publisher could just snap her fingers and there it would just appear, but I guess it takes a lot of time to put a cover on it and edit it and all those other things. So I will certainly keep you informed about it. I want to just mention my email address, info@drjohnrich.com. If you are somebody who wants to be a guest on the show, or you know somebody who would be a good guest, or you want to just have some time to talk with a psychologist about things that are going on, feel free to get in touch. So I have on the line our guest for today, and I'm really excited because I'm a personal fan of at least who this person looks like when he was on TV. His name is Rupert Boneham, and he is from Survivor. He's been on Survivor, what was it, 4 times, Rupert?
4 times, yeah.
4 times. How about that? And 2 of those times you were on back-to-back, right?
Exactly right. I was the first one to do back-to-back Survivor.
Yeah. So now, as somebody in the TV audience, I don't know this, so maybe you can, like, when you did that back-to-back, how much time was there actually between the taping of the first one and you being sent off for the second one?
There was about 6-8 weeks in between the taping.
Oh, okay.
So I had plenty of time to get myself back together.
Yeah, but you still probably didn't gain all the weight back, I'll bet.
Oh gosh, no! And when I went out for the second one to All Stars, I still had a lot of the skin infections and bangs and bruises and beat up. I was pretty rough.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Anytime I've contemplated applying, I'm like, I'm not doing that. That looks too hard. But one of the great...
God.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It was the hardest camping trip I've ever had in my life, and I've been lucky enough to do it 4 times. Hopefully, I get to do it another and be the first one to do 5 Survivors.
You're saying that you will, or you're saying it's possible?
If I had the power to decide who gets to play Survivor, oh my gosh, I'd be out playing it every season.
Wow.
But I just want everybody to know that I'm willing to play another.
Okay. Well, that would be interesting. I'd root for that too. I wonder what the theme might be, because they already did heroes and villains, and they've already had all of the callbacks. But anyway, the show is still going strong, and one of the great things about you is I feel as a fan and as somebody who knows a lot of fans that you really come across in those shows as a real tender person who has got a real big heart.
Well, on that very first one that I was out on Pearl Island, when I was a little over the top a few times. I remember one time when little Johnny Fairplay voted for me, and I went back to our camp and darn near killed that boy.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, it's easy to get mad at him. I was mad at him. I never met him.
Oh, yes, he is rotten.
Well, yeah. I even remember at the end of that show, because it really struck me that when you got voted off and you were there giving your final thoughts, that you said something like, so much for my dreams or something like that. Do you recall that?
Oh, Oh, yes. I can close my eyes and still remember the emotions that I had when I got booted out of that first one. How, I thought it was my turn and my time, and I was going to go out there and show everybody how good I was and how strong I was. And, getting booted off of the show made me kind of feel like I didn't do it, you know? But it's amazing how it all turned out, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. I remember another time you were talking about how, again, excuse me, I'm not trying to offend you or anything, but you said something like that sometimes things happen and you're back to being the fat kid on the playground or something like that. Like you've experienced some bullying in your time?
When I got booted out of Pearl Island that first time, where I kind of believed everybody and then realized that I was just kind of getting used, where,
I see.
Every once in a while, one of the, they like the skinny, good-looking guys on there so much, and they would poke me in the belly and do the little Pillsbury Doughboy laugh, or, kind of make fun a little bit. It was, I still was kind of that insecure kid when I went out on that first Survivor.
Yeah.
It's been a great growth from the last three Survivors after that. Just watching, and feeling myself being more comfortable and more strong with who I am.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And then, it's an interesting life lesson for all of us to think about the times when something didn't go our way or we got some disappointment, and then 5, 10, 15 years go by, and when you look back on it, you're like, well, how about that? If I hadn't gone through that, then this other thing would have never occurred.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. In our mentoring program, I show many young men and women, you have no idea the great things that could happen to you, that are going to happen to you in your future. I was 39 years old and struggling, working every day, thinking, what am I going to do? And then Survivor drops in my lap.
Huh.
You never know what is around the corner. When you're making good choices, when you're working hard, when you're taking care of yourself, when you're making positive decisions, it's amazing how the positive energy around you helps guide you into the things that you really need.
Well, how about that? So let's talk about the work that you're doing so people can find out more about you have a charity. It's called Rupert's Kids, and that's at rupertskids.org. Is that right?
Correct, yes. We have been running a mentoring program, vocational and clinical mentoring, since 91, 12 years before Survivor. Now, we started as Kids Hope, Kids Helping Other People Exist. And we ran for 12 years with just out of the juvenile detention center, teaching young men and women that were not making it in school how to make it in the vocational world. Back in the early 90s, we started throwing all the vocational ed away, all the industrial hallways, all the life skills, home skills in our high schools were going away. That's when we decided if we're not going to teach our children how to make a legal living besides going to college, we better start creating that in the real world, in the private sector. We have been teaching young men and women for years. Now, when I went out to Survivor in 2003, some wonderful person out there, entrepreneurial, bought Kids Hope, Kids Helping Other People Exist, and Rupert Boneham.com and .org, and was trying to sell them to me for $100,000. I dissolved Kids Hope and incorporated Rupert's Kids that day.
Okay.
A month later, I won $1 million from Survivor. It made it a lot easier for us to hire the lawyers, hire the accountants, rent an office, reapply for our nonprofit status. And, within 3 months, we had our nonprofit status back.
Yeah, well, that's great. And so let's go, before we talk about that big payout that you got there, going back to 1991, like where do people like you come from? You live in some kind of life, and then you decide that you're going to put together this service to help other people. I mean, not But there aren't, the majority of people don't make decisions like that. They're just looking out for themselves. So where was the impetus for that in 1991 for you?
You know, back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, I was one of our participants. I was that young man that we experimented with booze and pot, that experimented with drugs, that was making poor choices and didn't see the value in school.
Uh-huh.
But back in the day, we had the industrial hallway. We had a shop teacher that saw some value in me. We had different people out in our lives that were willing to share of themselves, you know, and it made it so that I made it as an adult. I made it through a hard childhood and became a pretty good adult. But I still was, you know, feeling like there's more that we could do. When I see the industrial hallways, the high schools starting to push everyone towards college, and if you're not going to college, you don't have value. That's when I stood up and said, well, you know, if that would have happened to me, who knows where I would be. I was 23 years old before I ever went back to college. Uh-huh. And that's only because I finally had gone through a divorce and I had realized I've got to do something for myself. Today's youth have so little opportunity to help themselves. Okay. The schools are struggling. The system is struggling. Mm-hmm. It's hard to really understand. At 27 years old, I said, we're going to make this world better. Mm-hmm. You know, I created Kids Hope, and from that first, and I still remember that first young man's name, Jake, that ended up, his mother came to me saying the boy was kicked out of school at 14 years old and not allowed to go back to school until next semester.
Right.
If a parent would do that to a child, they would be held neglectful, but our school could do that to a child. Uh-huh. She asked me if I would take him with and just start working him. I had the parent's permission to work a 14-year-older. We put him to work. Uh-huh. The program started without my really conscious effort of starting it because the need was there. Within a few months, I had 4 young men working with me. We hooked up with the juvenile detention center. We started hiring young men that were not making it in school. We would deem them incorrigible and make them work a 40-hour work week. Mm-hmm. The old program of, when I was a kid, of jail or military,
right?
We created jail or work. Uh-huh. But in our program, in Kids Hope, First Kids, we pay you to go to work. We pay you to learn how to take care of yourselves. We started working young men that were not making it in school and showed them how to make it in a vocational education setting. Every young man that every 12-year-older now, I can't say it about the 14, 16, 18-year-olders, but every 12-year-older, and we've got 38 of them in a 12-year period. Every 12-year-older we had, by the time they were 15, was back in some kind of school, some kind of education, some kind of training. They realized they didn't want to work from the neck down. Uh-huh. I created a program that, out of the need of the community, kind of manifested itself. It's the same thing that we've done for hundreds of years. An old guy takes a young guy out and teaches him how to go to work.
Right. The
journeyman programs, the mentoring programs, the apprenticeship programs. We've just modernized it a little bit.
Uh-huh. Well, so you simplify it a little bit because you say, that it happened because the need was there, but there had to be an intersection between the need being there and you being having a compassionate heart, or even noticing that it was something that you could, a need that you could fill. So why you? Why you? There are plenty of other people that would have found out that these kinds of things were happening and just said, good luck to them, and that would be the end of it.
I remember how that feeling is. I remember being 18 years old, running down Texas for the oil field and not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, living under the darn bridge, struggling.
Yeah.
Seeing so many young men and women in this world struggling. I found the mental health field years ago. I fit on either side. I know that I'm a little off, a little crazy. I fit on the crazy side. I know that I am a helper. I like giving to others, helping others, and empowering others. I fit on the supportive side. I fit. I found some place where I fit. There were no real vocational training programs out there. I knew I didn't want to stay in bar and restaurant business all my life. I created something for our community and for myself that helped us.
So tell us about the kids. You call them kids, but they're really teenagers or young adults. Is that right?
Yes, we call it Rupert's Kids, but in our program right now, I think the youngest is 19. The oldest is, well, I'm going to be 55 soon. I consider myself a participant. The oldest, as far as participants, I think we have a 46-year-older. We call it Rupert's Kids, but it is a throwback to the old thinking of, if you're going to act like a child, I'm going to call you a child.
Oh boy!
If you're going to make decisions that you do not understand the consequences, that you're not totally thinking through, that, just because you're chronologically 25 years old doesn't mean you're mentally.
Right.
29. So.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. So what kind of challenges do your kids have? What is it why do they need you? What kinds of life experiences or choices have they made that has made it difficult for them to succeed?
Most of our participants come to us because they've got no real work history, no education, no resources out there. They've came from families where drugs and alcohol were very prevalent, where violence and aggression were very prevalent, where they weren't always taught the best coping mechanisms, the best coping skills, the best parenting skills. They were not taught even the self-worth and work ethic. I have a lot of young men and women that come to me, active drug addicts.
Yeah.
The opiates, the methamphetamines, and the heroin epidemic is killing our young men and women.
Yeah.
I have a lot of participants come to me with anger and aggression issues that don't want to be violent, but as soon as somebody jumps, they're ready to throw down. They don't really understand the nuances of avoiding confrontation. I get usually the drug addicted, alcoholic, uneducated, angry young men and women that feel like they have been railroaded all their life, where a lot of times they have.
Yeah.
That feel like they were never given a chance, where a lot of times, you've got the wrong last name, and I know your older brother, your dad, your whoever, and you're just as bad as them.
I see.
On the day of meeting them.
Yeah.
I get 99% of the people walking in our doors have nowhere and nothing. They walk in with the clothes on their back and a giant need to just be okay. Just have a safe place to live, have a safe place to lay their head down, have a meal to eat, and clothes on their back, let alone being able to make a legal living. That's the next hurdle.
Right. So how do you get through to somebody who has the mindset that this world has always been against me and they're always going to be against me? How do you address that?
That takes some time. If you've got a 20-year-old that walks in with that attitude, you've got a good 20 months of, that's just my little rule of thumb. With every year of anger and aggression and abuse and neglect that these kids go through, you've got easily a month of every day telling them that they're okay, showing them that you're on their side, being there for them every day, letting them test you with their P's and their B's and their, as they spit a little bit where they're trying to back you off of them. Oh. And, so the little tricks that the kids have learned to try and kind of get you so you don't put too much effort into them, because you're probably just going to hurt them like everyone else.
Right. It's some self-protective measures, yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
We take those young men and women, grab a hold of them, and show them that they'll be okay.
Uh-huh. So,
it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
And it's the easiest thing I've ever done in my life.
Huh. How about that?
It takes time and it takes understanding.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't take anything else.
So run us through the process. So somebody walks through the door. What's the first thing, the second thing, the third thing? What's the program look like?
So, you're out there and you're struggling. You're on an anklet and you've got $15 a day to spend just to keep your freedom for your anklet. You've got $50 a month to spend on the administration of that. You've got $20 a month every time they make you pee in a cup.
You have to pay. If you have an ankle bracelet, you have to pay for it?
Yes, sir. $15 a day.
Wow.
If you're a minor
right.
with no job, you have to pay $7.50 a day.
Huh. Okay.
If you can't pay that, I put you back in jail.
Wow.
If you've never earned a legal dollar, how do you think they pay for that?
Uh-huh. Right.
So I've got somebody walking the streets, struggling. John or Jane Doe out there on the street, has nowhere, nothing. And when they've exhausted every resource, when they've finally came to the realization that they've got to figure something out, hopefully they're walking in our door.
Mm-hmm.
We sit them down. We try and figure out what's going on, what they've been doing, if they're still active in drugs and alcohol, if they're still active in the violence, if they're still active in the illegal. We sit them down with our social worker. We have them sign some releases so I can get into their files, and do the background check on them. After half an hour, 2 hours, we make sure they've got some food. We try and put some clothes on them. We tell them, come back tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter where they live. Doesn't matter what's going on. Come back tomorrow. Let's see if you can even make it back in tomorrow.
Right.
You ready to go to work? You've got to then, if you show up the next day at 9 o'clock in the morning, you sit down with me then, and I talk to you about coming into the program and going through a 10-day probationary period where you have to come in every day and work for $10 a day.
Yeah.
Where if I'm going to bring you into my program and pay you $7.25 an hour to learn how to take care of yourself, I'm going to clothe you, feed you, maybe even house you, transport you, drive you around. I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on you over the next year.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you are worthy of that. You're going to come in for the next 10 days every day, clean and sober, ready to go to work. You're going to work at least a 3-4 hour a day. You're not going to be doing everything that the hourly workers are doing. I'm going to stand with you and say, okay, you're here, you're working. We've got this yucky job. We've got to crawl in this crawl space. We've got to crawl in this attic.
Right.
I'm getting to the guys that are on the payroll to go in there, get some pictures, show me what's going on in there. While we stand here and talk about it and say, next week when you're on the payroll, I'm sending you in there too. And sometimes I hope that they say, I'll go in there now. Show me that you have the want to work. Show me that you have the want to take care of yourself, and you can go the 10 darn days and be there steady and regular.
Okay.
If you don't make the 10 days, I start you over. I've had young men that have had to do that 2, 3, 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
If you can make the 10 days in a row, then you go on the paycheck, you go on the payroll. But then we've got to work on getting Social Security cards, and we're already starting that with the first day they walk in. They might not have any ID. They might not have a birth certificate. They might not have Social Security card. They might not have state ID. They might not have any of that. That is tough to get.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So you then start working on that Social Security card. You start working on that, but you get them on the payroll and you start paying them $7.25 an hour to learn how to take care of themselves. Now, the bar still raises with every day that you're here. I expect you to be on time. If you are a no-call, no-show, the next day is a volunteer day. You go back to $10 a day. You do it twice, you're a no-call, no-show twice, you're going back to 2 days of volunteer. On the third day of no-call, no-show, I've been known to take you off the payroll and make you start over, because in a job out in the real world, that's how people quit. They don't, they just are a no-call, no-show for 3 days and somebody takes you off the payroll.
Yeah.
We never fire anyone. The bar just raises. If you are taking advantage of the housing that I'm giving you, if you're not paying your bills, but I walk in and you have beer in the refrigerator, booze, whatever, of course the beer is going away, the booze is going away, the whatever is going away, but you might also lose your housing for a week. I've been known to drive guys to Wheeler Mission, one of the missions in Indianapolis, drop them off at the door and say, don't let this make you lose your job also. You show up to work, you show that you are going to take care of yourself, pay your bills, keep yourself clean and sober, you get your house back.
If I can interject, there's some really great psychology there that you're using, whether you know it or not, that, it seems like sometimes we think that the best way to motivate somebody to try something is to try to make it as easy for them as possible. But if you make it difficult and they succeed, you're really creating some strong learning there. I mean, that's a great model that you have to make the person have to prove themselves at the beginning so that it becomes more valuable when they get over that hump.
100%, John. Like I say, I've been doing this 27 years. If I see that you have value in you, if I see that you are willing to help yourself, I will kill myself trying to bring that out in you. But I also am not going to make it so easy that I create a situation where I'm enabling you to be non-productive.
Yeah.
You have to want to take care of yourself. If you're not willing to give of yourself, if you're not willing to fight to get back what you have in a metaphoric sense, not in a physical sense, you've got to be strong. You've got to fight to make sure you can stay clean and sober. You can stay steady and regular. You can stay timely. You can all the things that we value out in society have to be learned.
So you say that you're paying everybody, but so what are you paying them to do? Is it all construction?
We do. Mostly we are, I call ourselves a general labor crew. Like the job that we had today, finishing up on, the metaphoric cat lady's house. We walked into a house where there are 38 cats, 2 dogs, 3 birds, and a leaky roof that had leaked for 10 years. Black mold and nasty growing throughout the house.
That's terrible. Yeah.
The ammonia had leaked into everything. I mean, so bad that we had to mask up and cover ourselves to even walk in this house to clean it up, clean it out, rip the roof off, replace it, go in, rip 40 sheets of drywall out that were covered in black mold, rip all the insulation out, and put it all back in. You're teaching, when you're doing something like that, besides the fact of teaching the construction, the framing, the insulation, the drywall, the finish work, all the roofing, the shingling, the decking, besides doing all of that, you're teaching young men and women the art of compassion also. We're working in a house that is god-awful. that this lady lives in.
Right.
And we are trying to make it better for her, the last 5-10 years of her life, to have something that will not make her sick, but will actually, improve the quality of her life.
Mm-hmm.
We go in, we've been known to do foundation work on houses that are crumbling, that families cannot afford to do, $20,000, $30,000 worth of foundation work. We'll come in. We'll pick your house up. We fix the foundation. We set it back down. We go on.
Mm-hmm.
We've been known to, from foundations to roofs and everywhere in between. Now, we have to be a little careful on the wiring and the plumbing. We are not certified electricians. We are not certified plumbers. We bring those workers in.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are bringing those in, that's also a great time that I can, say, I'm hiring you, but I'm going to have one or two guys standing right on your back, watching everything you do.
Yeah. Do they ever talk about, if you ever wanted to become an electrician, this is what's involved?
I've gone so far as to start working with different builders associations, saying, why are you encouraging people to go to college when we need to start creating the journeyman programs, the trades programs, the scholarships to get people into the trades, not just college.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage everyone out there to share their knowledge.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about, where does the money come from to pay everybody, and you have a secretary and you have to buy all the tools, and where is that money coming from?
We have a business plan that is the worst business plan in the world. Money is not our focus. The lives that we are trying to change is our focus.
Yeah.
The money just is one of those byproducts, those things that we have to deal with. We, for 27 years, have never been given government dollars. We take no city, state, federal funding. We take no government dollars. We're not opposed to them. We've just never been given them.
Yeah.
I don't spend the money on doing the documentation that, the follow-up, a lot of the paperwork that the system likes,
right,
to actually get a lot of the grants.
Uh-huh.
I worry more about the results than documenting the results. I want people to come out and see what we're doing.
Yeah.
Why we do that, when government gives you government dollars, you are tied then to the government.
Mm-hmm.
When you hold your hand out as a charity to the government, you're beholden to them. I take young men and women that have only been taught to hold their hand out and have the ask to pull that hand back and have that want to help yourself.
Uh-huh.
We as a charity stand up, pull that hand back, and have that want to show how we do not spend government dollars. We do not spend tax dollars. We save tax dollars.
Right.
The few dollars that we do spend are $150,000, some years $200,000 a year budget. We generate with the work that we do, with the projects that we do, with the fundraising in the private sector that we do, with, like, coming up here in just a couple of weeks, we have our 14th annual Tuxes and Tennies. We'll hopefully generate $10,000, $20,000 that night.
Mm-hmm.
We have been able to show how you run a mentoring program with no funding.
Mm-hmm.
We have zero administrative costs. Anyone in our program, besides the participants and a few mentors that are minimally paid, everyone else is a volunteer.
Uh-huh.
Even Kay, who you've talked to, that our receptionist here, that puts in, 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
100% volunteer. We give of ourselves to be involved here. I, unfortunately, have in the, last 2-3 years, have not been able to pull a paycheck at all. It used to be the entertainment side of my world would fund enough extra that I would even pay myself a little, $10,000 a year salary. Mm-hmm. I don't even do that anymore. Everything that we generate goes into our program to buying materials and helping the community, helping our participants, helping the disabled, the elderly, and the veterans. Helping give back to our community is the best thing that you can do. It's amazing what happens when you start, like I say, when you start making positive choices in your life, the positive around you gets more, increases. We run our program with the faith that we will have enough money to do whatever we need. Uh-huh. We can't do whatever we want, or I would have the mentoring program, the beds already there. Uh-huh. We have to show how we do it with no money.
Yeah, well, I wasn't asking the money question to say that the money was more important than the people.
Right. I know.
Yeah, as much as trying to keep in mind a listener out there who might be interested in doing something similar. And I know that you have something on your website where you're suggesting that you would like your program to be replicated in other locations.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if somebody out there is listening and saying, you know what, that sounds like something that would be interesting to me, what would you say would be the first, second, third steps that they would want to take?
I want to say that running our mentoring program, you're never going to get rich working in the system.
Yeah.
You're never going, if you're starting a nonprofit to actually pay yourself, stop. Mm-hmm. I have been able to do this because I have two other jobs. I have the entertainment world, and I actually am a youth pastor at our church that does pay me also. I will say to anyone out there, what we're doing here in Indiana, in central Indiana, can be replicated across the country. Mm-hmm. If you have that desire to make a change in your community, you start with that first, how I started with Jake, that first 14-year-old that was struggling with learning how to make a legal living, that did not like high school, that was not a good student, but had a desire to be okay, didn't have good role models. Jake and I started working together, and the program just started. It's amazing what happens. For anyone sitting out there that has that want, I would say you start looking at your community. You start targeting buildings that are abandoned, that have a good structure and a good frame, but have been left to sit vacant.
Yeah.
You find out who owns them. Half the time, the city owns a bunch of these properties. They don't know what the heck to do. We came in, we found this property, we targeted it, and found the owners. They donated it to us.
Right. We
walked in and said, how can we start creating a reentry program with this? You've got to take it step at a time.
Yeah.
You get the community involved. Once you've targeted a building, find out who owns it. If you can have a chance to get it, great, that's your building. You work on that. If not, you keep moving until you find a building. What we found was a warehouse that had 2,000 square feet of office space with it.
Yeah.
Now, what you're looking for is being able to have under one roof vocational training and residence. You can do it as small as a house. You don't need to go as big as we're doing. Like I say, after 27 years, my dreams are giant. I'm creating a 16-bed reentry program with 10,000 square feet of warehouse space that is going to be vocational training. Someone to start out with, 27 years ago, I never realized it would be so big. I started out with one child. For someone out there that is wanting to create a reentry program, start out with one building.
Yeah.
One bedroom. You walk into the detention center, you start talking to people, you start finding out in your community, you start going to the community meetings. Every community out there has town hall meetings, and if they don't, you start getting on your local officials, your mayors, your county commissioners to create the town hall meeting. Start talking about the overcrowded detention center that every community has. I don't care, every community's detention centers, unless they're a very affluent community that can build these detention centers that actually send out to other communities and bring in their prisoners and make it a for-profit world, which is a whole nother story. But you get involved, you get started, you have a building, and you start with one person, one focus, one goal.
Yeah.
Start out small, one building, one house, one person. And you say, I'm going to help one person learn vocational training and be okay. When they're walking out of the detention center, if they have nowhere to go, if they have no support system, when you're sitting in your community and you're wanting to help, think about being that support system for that one person walking out of the detention center. I am more than willing on our website for anyone out there to get a hold of us, office at Rupert's Kids. That will come right through to Kay, our office manager. That when she gets those inquiries on how do I start this, I've been known to go travel to other communities. If it's driving, I'll drive myself there. If I've got to fly, I might ask for the plane ticket.
Right.
I'll go out to any community and give suggestions, give 27 years of knowledge to how you get started.
That's fantastic.
Can be started over the phone, and then when you get to that point, I'll show up and bring the community with me. We'll show up and make a splash that Rupert from Survivor is coming out to help the community. People will show up.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. That's so you are a youth pastor at a church, you said?
Yes, I for the last couple of years I've been working at the Methodist church that my wife and I got married at.
Oh,
That's
nice.
kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of what you're saying sounds like, the kind of thing that a pastor would tell other people to do. Create relationships with people and care for them and, take care of the oppressed. It's a lot different view of Christianity than some people have decided it should be taught, I think.
Yes. I deal in the system, especially when we only worked in the juvenile system. A lot of families and people in situations that put our children in a position to believe it's a vengeful, mean, punishing God. I'm not real crazy about that side. I like showing the love of all of us can shine through in so many ways. So many ways.
Great. Well, Rupert, I'm delighted to have had the chance to talk about you and talk about the work that you're doing. I'm going to have to round out the show. I'd like to give you an opportunity to just give, one. If you had to crystallize the message for the people who are listening, what would it be? Good.
Honestly, I've been for 27 years trying to show how if we work together, the world will be better. 27 years ago, we didn't have our children shooting us. 27 years ago, we started throwing our kids away. We need to look at what we're doing. Trying to beat people into submission does not work. Trying to put an alcoholic, a drug addict in prison creates more problems, creates more career criminals, does not create more workers, does not save our dollars, does not help our society. It hurts it. It costs us. As more and more of us baby boomers are graduating out of the workforce, there are less and less of us to help fund these programs.
Yeah.
We better start thinking about ways. And here in Shelbyville, in Shelby County, we're even getting into opioid opiate redirection program where in a 90-day intensive program and then a 90-day out intensive program, we hope to show great results with the opioid addiction problems. Every community out there is struggling, and it's all the same problem. We need to empower our youth, empower ourselves, and give each other a break. A lot of the people really that are caught up in the opiates got into it, unfortunately, through, and this is why we have so many professionals that are struggling with the addictions. I have many cases that they were over-medicated through a surgery, they were over-medicated through pain, through something.
Yep.
The body feels like it likes that, and it pushes them into the drug world.
Yeah.
There are so many alternatives. In Rupert's Kids, we're trying to show those alternatives. We can't beat everyone into submission, but we can empower us all. Not everyone will take it, but the results are so much better than what we have now. Rupert'sKids.org.
Rupert'sKids.org. Yep.
We're out there really trying to show how, without government dollars, with just the private sector, we can change our system.
Well, you know how to finish an interview, don't you?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, everybody, that's our show for the day. Again, if you want to get in touch with Rupert, you can email him at office@rupertskids.org, right? Not .com.
Yes.
And you can reach me at info@drjohnrich.com. I'm delighted to have you listening again. We're always looking for people who are out there trying to make the world a better place. Let us know if you have an idea for somebody whose work should be highlighted. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Rupert.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day, John.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Living in a city, when you're in it, watch the people walk by. And if you listen real close, you can hear them talk about their lives. And some hate it, some love it, some are thought, some are just tired. These are the people in the neighborhood, they just trying to make it out right. See, she never wanna be a new
IPMNation.com.